Betrayal, inadvertent or planned, continues. It need not. While no one can predict the sequence of steps that will unerringly achieve a free society for free-willed individuals, one can eliminate in one slash all those that will not advance liberty, and applying the principles of the market unwaveringly, map out a terrain to travel. There is no one way, one straight line graph to liberty, to be sure, but there is a family of graphs, a space filled with lines that will take the libertarian to his goal of the free society, and that space can be described. Once the goal is fixed and the paths discovered, only the action of the individual to go from here to there remains. Above all, this manifesto calls for that action. I hope subsequent editions may omit this note, but in the present historical context, it is vital to point out that libertarianism is not specifically for the most advanced or enlightened elements of North America, perhaps typified by the young, white, highly read computer consultant, equally feminist mate, and 0.5 children. Only the freest market can raise the second and third world from grinding poverty and self-destructive superstition. Compulsory attempts critically to raise production standards and associated cultural understanding have caused backlash and regression, e.g. Iran and Afghanistan. Mostly the state has engaged in deliberate repression of self-improvement. Quasi-free markets, such as the free ports of Hong Kong, Singapore, and earlier Shanghai, attracted floods of upwardly mobile, highly motivated entrepreneurs. The incredibly well-developed black market of Burma already runs the entire economy and needs only a libertarian awareness to oust Ne Win in the army, accelerating trade and annihilating poverty overnight. Similar observations are possible about developed black markets and tolerated semi-free markets in the Second World of Soviet occupation, such as Armenia, Georgia, and the Russian counter-economy, Nalevo. Note to second edition. The above note is still, sadly enough, needed. Note to third edition. With the collapse of communism, maybe the need is declining, but the note's still here. Chapter 2. Agorism, our goal. The basic principle that leads a libertarianism from statism to a free society is the same that the founders of libertarianism used to discover the theory itself. That principle is consistency. Thus, consistent application of the theory of libertarianism to every action the individual libertarian takes creates the libertarian society. Many thinkers have expressed the need for consistency between means and ends. Not all were libertarians. Ironically, many statists have claimed inconsistency between laudable ends and contemptible means. Yet when their true ends of greater power and oppression were understood, their means are found to be quite consistent. It is part of the statist mystique to confuse the necessity of ends-means consistency. It is thus the most crucial activity of the libertarian theorists to expose inconsistencies. Many theorists have done so admirably, but few have attempted and most failed to describe the consistent means and ends combination of libertarianism. To cite the most spectacular so far, Murray Rothbard will use any past political strategy to further libertarianism, falling back on ever more radical ones when the previous ones fail. Robert Lefebvre advocates a purity of thought and deed in each individual that this author and many others find inspiring, but he holds back from describing a complete strategy resulting from these personal tactics, partially due to a fear of being charged with prescribing as well as describing. This author has no such fear. Lefebvre's pacifism also dilutes the attraction of his libertarian tactics, probably far more than deserved. Andrew J. Galambos advocates a fairly counter-economic position, see the next chapter, but positively drives away recruits by his anti-movement stance and his secret society organizational tactic. His primary property deviationism, like Lefebvre's pacifism, probably also detracts from the rest of his theory more than is warranted. Harry Brown's How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World is an immensely popular guide to personal liberation. Having been influenced by Rothbard, Lefebvre, and Galambos, Brown fairly correctly, if superficially, maps out valid tactics for the individual to survive and prosper in a statist society. He offers no overall strategy, and his techniques would break down in an advanced counter-economic system as it nears the free society. A deviation with no particular spokesperson, but associated largely with the libertarian connection, is the idea of achieving freedom by outflanking the state with technology. This seems to have plausible validity in the recent case of the U.S. state deciding not to regulate the explosive growth information industry, but it fails to take into account the ingenuity of those who will keep statism around as long as people demand it. Whether or not this manifesto is itself correct can be determined by the same principle. If consistency fails, then all within is meaningless. In fact, language is then gibberish and existence a fraud. This cannot be overemphasized. Should an inconsistency be discovered in these pages, then the consistent reformulation is new libertarianism, not what has been found in error. New libertarianism, agorism, cannot be discredited without liberty or reality or both being discredited, only an incorrect formulation. Let us begin by citing our goal. What does a free society look like, or at least a society as free as we can hope to achieve with our present understanding? When our understanding increases, one assumes we can achieve a freer society. Undoubtedly, the freest society yet envisioned is that of Robert Lefebvre. All relations between people are voluntary exchanges, a free market. No one will injure another or trespass in any way. Of course, a lot more than sadism would have to be eliminated from individual consciousness for his society to exist. Most damaging of all to this perfectly free society is its lack of a mechanism of correction. In The Great Explosion, science fiction writer Eric Frank Russell posits a society close to that envisioned by Lefebvre. The pacifist Gans did have a correction mechanism for occasionally aberrant individuals, the idle jack cases. Unfortunately, shunning would fail the moment the coercers reached a critical number to form a supportive, self-sustaining sub-society. That they could is obvious. They have. Lack of a mechanism of correction. All it takes is a handful of practitioners of coercion to enjoy their ill-gotten plunder and enough company to sustain them, and freedom is dead. Even if all are living free, one bite of the apple, one throwback, reading old history or rediscovering evil on his own, will unfree the perfect society. The next best thing to a free society is the libertarian society. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty, Thomas Jefferson, and it may be possible to have a small number of individuals in the marketplace ready to defend against sporadic aggression, or large numbers may retain sufficient knowledge and ability to use that knowledge of basic self-defense to deter random attacks, the coercer never knowing who might be well versed in defense, and eliminate the profitability of systematic violence initiation.